Now, a few years ago, when you saw a young man holding a laptop in a random room, you probably think he was a Yahoo boy. But these days, there's a lot happening in that space. There's a lot of online workers these days who are doing great things, from bloggers to website owners to media. They're called the new media, basically. And we'll have a couple of them in the house here to discuss how that sector is thriving and why it's such a big deal these days. Onos Overaye from entertainment editor Bella Niger. Yeah. Thank you very much for being here today. And Osage Alonge, chief correspondent with the Net NG.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here today. Now let's talk about, I think every young person, every person actually these days, because I know I've met a lot of older people who tell me they visit a lot of your sites. Why is it such a thrill now for people to want to get their news from you guys as against traditional media?
It's easier. It's really that simple. It's a lot easier because everybody has a handheld phone. Everybody has a mobile. And everybody's mobile is connected to the internet. So it's easier to do that than to look for where to find a newspaper.
Now, a lot of people also say that you guys have a reputation, as it were, of, because you are sort of, people go to you for the news first because you break the news very quickly and all of that. You now sort of have a reputation of putting out news that's not verified a lot of times. Now, we're going to talk about that. How do you guys handle that sort of situation where there's competition and you want to be the guy who breaks the news first as against the guy who verifies the news first?
It's about being thorough. It's about still following the ethics of journalism and putting those first as the main criteria for your job. You tend to want to do the right thing. We call it the right thing. Verifying news, like you said, reaching sources or parties involved. I mean, it takes a couple of phone calls. It might take some time, but doing the right thing is always best. So that's why we tend to say we're thorough. Is
it possible that a lot of you put out news sometimes that's not verified? Like you said, now you want to make calls, you don't reach these guys, and you just say, you know what, let's just push it out. Maybe it's even true. Does that happen sometimes? Where you just put out news by faith?
No, because it's in this workspace, in quote, it's unethical. Because why would you tell people a lie, especially when your truth has gotten you to this platform, to the level that everything this person says is most likely true, and then you put something out there that isn't? It's against the ethos of the journalism that we're trying to do.
So those that do it, why do they do it? Why do they do it then? Why is it?
Because, online, it's basically a fight for clicks. Whoever breaks the news is most likely... There are sometimes you hear news about someone you're interested in, maybe Two-Face, and you find out that the website you're reading the news, you've never heard about it before. And that's what it's about. Whoever breaks good news or bad news is most likely going to get all the traffic.
For that time.
Yeah, and more traffic means more advertising.
We're going to get to the money-making parts at some point. But I want to go to, from what he said initially about, the traditional media and new media. You work for an organization that has both traditional media, they put out print papers, yes, but also have an online. Why do you have to do both? Why not stick with one?
Well, it's about equity. I mean, people still respect, the traditional media. That's the print, the newspapers. And the transition from traditional media to new media is, despite it being evident, it's kind of slow in Nigeria. So for everybody who has a handheld phone and reads, the blogs on their phone, there's still that man that works probably at Nigerian breweries who still wants to read his newspaper, with his cup of coffee in the morning. So we still have to cater to those people and gradually make the transition finally to new media.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a Nigerian breweries guy, because I also like print. I like to read stuff. Okay. And my friends actually laugh at me because I have a stack of magazines in my room. I'm one of those guys who buys printed stuff. Now, do you think this is a threat to those traditional media papers like newspapers and TV, for example? Because most people actually watch things on YouTube now. You can watch your favorite shows there. The news, you just get a click and you watch the video as against sitting down to wait for it to come on. Do you think new media will finally kill traditional media?
I'll say outrightly yes, because there was a time people used pagers and mobile phones were luxury goods. Look at the world now. You can buy a phone for 5,000 naira. So if I saw a schoolgirl, maybe like 6 years old, on the phone with her mom, telling her, should I buy pepper? So eventually, every cheap phone can have internet access, and information will be at the touch of your finger.
Do you agree?
Yes, I rightly do, because like he said, I mean, it's just about the transition. We're all moving towards new media. It's kind of slow in Nigeria, but it will still happen. About 10 years ago, we were barely recharging our phones like the way we should, but now we're having Skype conversations on our mobile phones. So it's going to take time, but the transition is definitely evident, and it's going to happen. It's going to naturally. Some Double XL now publishes every 3 months. They used to every month. It's now every 3 months because they focus more on their online platform. And a lot of other magazines also have reduced the number of editions they put out in a year, just because new media. Stories come out on social networks. I mean, news breaks on social network, news breaks on the blogs. The newspapers have to wait till the next day
to print.
And if you're weekly, you have to wait till the end of the week, you know. So it's going to take time, but it's going to happen.
Okay, we're talking about blogs generally. One thing that I know a lot of people accuse you guys about as well is the fact that news breaks in one blog and everybody replicates and duplicates and sometimes just copies and pastes and still puts breaking news at 3 hours after it broke on one blog. Why is that? And I see it a lot. I'm not saying your organizations are guilty, but I know I see that a lot where, you know, you see the exact same story with the exact same pictures in blog after blog after blog after blog. And I'm like, is that ethical? I know that even traditional newspapers have stories, the same stories across board sometimes, but when is the same sort of word for word? How does that work?
I would just say that there's a reason why both of us are here speaking with you. There are people who, I won't really say it's laziness,
okay,
but it's easier for them because they can just like copy and paste, and then people who don't know where the source is from will still get the news. If they're aggressive on social media platforms, people will still click and still read their news and not know where it's from. So that's why it's actually something that irritates us, because you put thought into what you've written and what you've researched, and you've made phone calls and you've tried to reach out to people and you've verified news, and then someone just comes and copies everything, copies your title, copies your pictures without giving you a photo credit or using stating you as the source. So
it irritates you. Are there ways that you guys are trying to fight this? Like, can you sue? I know online laws are like a big problem,
yeah,
almost non-existent anyway.
To add to what he said, I think they're just being lazy, and also there has been no proper orientation. I mean, despite there not being any major standards on blogging in Nigeria or even around the world, I mean, you could open your own blog and blog. It's your blog. You have the right to do so. But I think people should be, properly oriented about how to blog. When I joined NET in 2011, January, my editor-in-chief, Mr. Eni Adekunle, he actually schooled me for months because I had to make phone calls to reach people, and background stories, make references, and all that. And, when you do all that, 2 hours later, I said 2 hours, 15 minutes, 5 minutes later, you just see the same story and even your byline on another blog. And, most times you try and reach this blog, they don't even have contact pages, So it's really bad, but I think the problem is a precedent has been set. A couple of very, maybe popular bloggers got popular and made a lot of money off it. So everybody feels they can go down that path. It's all about trend. And, Nigeria, once somebody does something, becomes successful at it, everybody wants to follow the path.